are you?
We are the knights who say... Nee.
No, not the knights who say nee.
We are the knights who say nee. Welcome and welcome everyone to World Cinema Breakdown. I'm your host as usual, but today I have a lot of guests with me, so let me start off with my first guest.
I'm Mike.
This is...
I'm Joel, Secretary General of Movie Book Club.
And we have...
Swecha.
All right, so I'm here on a road trip in Savannah with some of my friends, and we were thinking, what movie do I watch? And movie, you say? Well, we had to do this video together because these two clowns here, they wanted us to watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And I'll let them tell you a little bit about why they want us to watch it.
I mean, this movie is like one of my favorite movies of all time. I think it's the best comedy of all time. Highly recommend you watch it and watch the rest of this video.
The jokes really are timeless.
Okay, well, me and Swecha here, we don't know anything about the movie, but I do know that it's really funny, and I think he's seen a lot of the memes from it. I haven't. I've heard something about this knee thing that you guys heard. But before we get too much into it, let's get started with the trailer. And before I start with the trailer, this is the 40th anniversary trailer and not the original trailer from 1975. Let's begin.
Once in a lifetime, there comes a motion picture which changes the whole history of
Very
motion
accurate
pictures. A
history
picture so stunning
motion.
in its effect, so vast in its impact, that it profoundly affects the lives of all who see it.
So this is not like Game of Thrones.
Very good, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Similarities.
Next, please.
Basically, Game of Thrones minus the game and minus the
Once in a lifetime, there comes a motion picture which changes the whole history of motion pictures.
Yes, thank you. Next.
It's very much like the movie. It's a good trailer. So far.
Looks like a good time.
Oh, for goodness sake, let us do it. Once in a lifetime, there comes a motion picture which changes the whole history of motion pictures. Now, from the people who
Wow, that was
the
it.
39th anniversary re-release of Monty Python and the Holy Grail,
And already at work on the 41st anniversary re-release of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
comes the long-awaited 40th anniversary re-release of Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Get on with it.
Get on with it.
Back in cinemas in this special new edition.
I told them we really got one. With up to 25% more parody.
Such a good movie. There's so many like different sketches. Each one is the best sketch.
I just hope there's not too much trail in this new edition.
Wear fancy dress.
This isn't my nose, it's a false one.
You could even sing along if you like.
Stop that! You're not going to do a song while I'm here.
No singing
See it
allowed.
again for the first time on the big screen.
Your mother was
Lots of characters I can tell.
That actually was just one of the best characters right there.
Or
The
if
knight,
you've
the
never
French
seen
knight.
it, see it now for the first time.
Or see it for the first time since you last saw it.
Or if you're very old or very ill, see it for what may be the last time.
I'm not dead.
I think I could pull through, sir.
Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Back in cinemas for the first time since the last
Special
time.
effects in 1975.
Praised.
Some high quality stuff, you know?
Okay, well, that was something. Well, like I said before, yeah, I mean, what do you have to say since the two of us were the first time? It was the first time for us seeing the trailer.
I really like the horses in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it was 1975, it's not even really evident. Well, the trailer is kind of old school, you can tell, but I'm excited to see it. Any final thoughts before we dive right into the movie?
I mean, if the 40th edition is going to be this good, I can't wait for the 69th edition.
I think this trailer really accurately represents what the movie's about, and I'm excited for you guys to see it.
Okay, well, I'll see you guys on the other side of the journey after we've seen the movie. See you there. Whoop! And we're back. All right, so we just went on that hour-and-a-half journey, and I must say, that was actually quite a good time, and thanks to these two, we actually did end up watching it, and I didn't expect it to be so fun, you know? I mean, it was from 1975, so I definitely toned my expectations down, and the acting was great, but oh my god, the way they filmed everything, despite such a weird budget, what I'm sure some of these guys will touch on, and the fact that literally every 2 minutes there was probably like a whole new meme that popped out of it. and now I can finally understand the memes I see online. What about you? What would you take out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I had a very different take. I think it's very historic, accurate portrayal of the medieval times, political conflicts, the Black Plague, a lot of things that bothered the people. No, I'm kidding. But it was actually one of the best comedies of all time. It's a cult classic. You have to watch it. And every single scene is extremely quotable, extremely memorable, and you'll just be laughing for days.
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, this is really on par with the whole Monty Python gang, their sort of comedic humor, their sort of comedic archetypes. I really like just how well the jokes age over time. I mean, it's 75 to 22. I mean, it's if I do the math, that's like 47 years. 47. So yeah, 40. Like it's a really old movie, but I mean, it's still quotable. As Mike mentioned, there were just so many quotable moments. I really like how I'm able to like analyze and evaluate the literature, but I do want to save that for the spoiler part, since a lot of that will touch on some spoiler items.
Also, real quick before he goes, do you want to tell him who Monty Python even is, or what?
Yeah, I should actually mention who Monty Python is. So they're a comedic troupe from way back in the day. They're an English or British, I'm not sure which one, but they're a comedy troupe from the 70s and 80s, and they even had their own TV show as well as a whole series of movies. So a lot of their comedic style follows sort of the same humor in this movie as well as others, but I think this movie, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, was really their magnum opus.
Yeah. And you?
I really like the movie. It's something that was made for Reddit and those who love Reddit, and the fourth wall break is definitely better than Deadpool.
It's bold.
And all the lack of money that makes a movie shit is what makes this movie really amazing.
Okay.
We'll take.
All right.
Oh yeah, I was gonna add like you might have to watch the movie many times in order to get every single joke. Like, even the subtitles have jokes within jokes within jokes. Yeah. So
speaking of that, I was trying to skip the subtitles only to get almost smacked by these two for doing so, and now I see why. And what he mentioned is actually a good point, because you guys have seen this movie like 2 or 3 times now, and you guys actually saw things that you hadn't even noticed, the first or second time around. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're really funny things too. You see them again, but you haven't seen them. You don't remember them from before, but when you see them for the first time again, it just pops at you.
Yeah, I can see why. All right, well, let's just move on right along to the spoiler section, because there's definitely a lot of funny scenes to talk about that I'm just dying to get into. Any of you guys want to start off with your takes, or maybe any scene? How about this? Give me your take, but also a funny scene of yours that you just, it's really memorable for you personally.
Yeah, sure. So my overall take is that this is a really good sort of take on Death of the American Dream. It's a really good derivative of Arthur Miller's classic Death of a Salesman.
No, keep going. Do your thing.
No, you gotta start out.
No, keep going.
All right.
Keep going. That was good. Keep going.
You can cut it and everything.
Oh, I'm not cutting this. Trust me. Keep going.
So yeah, I think it's a really good take on Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. Really captures the death of the American dream, but kind of in an old style British way. It really takes it back to the medieval era. You have this middle class protagonist, Arthur, King of the Britons.
Middle class.
And yes, well, I mean, he didn't even have a horse,
Oh my god.
So it's a balancing act. But I mean, he goes through all these trials and tribulations. He starts out really grand, but he goes through this autonomous commune. Then he's taunted by some French. And he faced a lot of tribulations, whether that be a black knight, whether that be plague, whether that be a witch, whether that be a rabbit that fights you, whether that be a creature that runs you through the cave, or even whether that just be an old man by a bridge. But at the end, he goes through all these tribulations, he finally sees glory. At the very end of it, the police just take him away, and it's not quite the same dramatic effect as the Suicide and Death of a Salesman, but I do think that it sort of it's a really good derivative.
Wait, spoiler.
I thought this was a spoiler section.
You spoke about the Death of a Salesman, but it's okay. I haven't seen that yet, but I guess it's spoiled now.
We all know about the death of the American dream. We're living it.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more or less. So, I really think it just, every single part of this film is so I'm just grabbing Utkarsh and yo, pay attention. This is the best part. And then I said it 5 times. So.
He's not lying.
I'm obsessed with this movie, so I think it's silly, really silly movie. It's also heady at the same time. It has the political jokes about autonomous communes with bi-weekly meetings and all this stuff, and there's so much depth, but also it just you cannot be logical while watching this movie. And I think that's hugely refreshing. And yeah, I think like, I don't know, I can't even pick a favorite part. I'm sure we'll talk more about different scenes and stuff, but like, I'd say, oh, okay, one of my favorite things is the opening scene, right? So I have a story when I was at camp. So, you know, the night, the King Arthur's coming over the hill, and you hear his horse.
Horse?
And then you see him, and it's really just a guy with coconuts. And then those coconuts may or may not be carried by swallows.
European or African, but African swallows, of course, not migratory. So.
Well, it's a question of rate ratios. I don't know.
Well, I mean, if you have two in a line, you know, it's...
I mean, yes, exactly.
So yeah. Get a line.
Well, you gotta watch the movie. You gotta pay. When you watch it the second time, they'll explain.
But yeah, like I remember when I was young at summer camp, my really nerdy camp counselor made me be the coconut guy behind him while he was trotting around camp. So that's probably one of my most memorable. And also the bridge, you know, when they ask, answer me these questions 3. You know, what is your name? What is your quest? What is your favorite color?
Yeah, well, actually, that reminds me. King Arthur thought it was 5 questions, and that's actually something I noticed. He has a really hard time counting to 3, and that
happened multiple times actually in the movie. Yeah,
and one of those times was the first time I noticed it, like right when they get to the scene, like right as they get to the scene where they meet the sorcerer and they're about to face the rabbit. I really liked that scene. I forgot to mention my favorite scene, but it's definitely that scene where they're counting to 3 with a holy hand grenade. They go through a very biblical passage, and actually really resonates with like kind of how the King James Bible is really written out, sort of the writing style of that. I would say that has to be my favorite scene, just because it's really funny. And it's just so quotable, and like you can quote it so many ways, but like you can adapt the quote or you can just quote it verbatim. It's just so quotable, like even 47 years later.
If you know Joel, like that's exactly his humor. 3 is the number.
I was literally about to say, this is exactly why we have him here today.
I like to count.
Me personally, some of the things that really stood out to me were, obviously I already said this before, breaking the fourth wall literally every like 2 lines. And we touched on the fact that the budget was low, and I think we saw online that it was like £200,000. And they actually even had some famous investors. Who was it? Pink Floyd and
Genesis.
Led Zeppelin and Genesis.
And of course, Genesis. Can't forget them.
Of course.
Can't forget Led Zeppelin.
And the funny thing is, a lot of the jokes that came about weren't even maybe necessarily out of creativity. It was out of necessity. The fake horses and things of that nature. So I thought that was really funny. And another thing that I really found interesting that I didn't expect was the fact that each of the knights that did die, they died in such a randomly bizarre and different way. I mean, come on, 2 of them got killed by rabbits. 1 or 2 of them got...
5 of them got killed by rabbits.
One rabbit.
One rabbit. 5.
One rabbit. One rabbit.
By 1 rabbit. I remember one of them just got thrown into the air at the death of the Bridge of Death?
Yes.
Because he said his favorite color was blue, and he's like, nope.
He forgot it was yellow.
And in terms of the favorite scenes, for me, it was definitely by far, especially because these guys had hyped up the whole knee thing so much. I was just looking forward to it, and it was definitely funny because... there's a massive callback to it. And that's another thing I noticed. There were a lot of things in the movie that, you probably saw in the first 10 minutes, and then 45 minutes later, it calls back to it. And you're like, oh yeah, I remember this happening. And speaking of callbacks...
Oh my gosh, wait, I was just, like, there's so many to remember.
Exactly.
So, the swallow, right, carrying the coconut. We cut to a scene where the king is prancing through a town, and you see a knight attaching a coconut to a swallow. And then that cuts to the other scene.
If you didn't point that out, I would have never saw that. Like, I watched this movie 3, maybe even 4 times. That's the first time I saw it tonight, only because Mike pointed it out.
And then one more thing I want to touch on before we get his opinion as well is besides, we saw these human actors doing acting, but between each of those scenes, scene 24 or whatever, we would see all these animations, and each of them could honestly be a standalone little clip. And they were, kind of funny, jokey, humory at the same time. And obviously the animation was also cool, especially considering it was 1975.
Yeah, I mean, they brought a lot of random clips into like a cohesive, plot.
Somehow.
I mean, that's just a classic Monty Python movie. Just a bunch of plot, like a bunch of random things that could be their own thing, all into one plot.
I mean, the plot itself is what, like 1 line, if it even constitutes one whole line.
They seek the Holy Grail.
That's it. Well, what about you? What do you think about it?
Again, like as I said, everything that makes low budget movie so bad is what makes this good. And one of the things I've observed is the pacing of the jokes, the lack of like colorful footage. They just let scenes breathe. There's a scene of this knight trying to run into a castle, and it is the same 5-second footage played 10 times for dramatic effect. And
Actually, you know what? Before you continue, let's just put that clip in there so we can see what he's talking about.
Two hours later. Three days later.
And there's like other scenes where you see an animation of this guy trying to run out of the castle, and you see him run through every single floor, and like the pacing of it lets the jokes just breathe. And given that how many Easter eggs this movie drops throughout the movie, the pacing really helps with you just savor each moment, and that's what makes this movie very memeable.
Yeah, if I had to evaluate the movie as a whole, I'd have to give it like a 9.5 out of 10. The only reason I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is because in the beginning they do hype the character of Swedish Moose, but I don't really see much of it. I just don't see them, appearing often in this film. So that was a bit of a letdown, but overall, I mean, this movie really stands the test of time. So I give it like a 9.5 plus out of 10.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, bold claims.
I know, it's crazy.
For a bold movie.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, it really is my favorite comedy movie. And I mean, for some people, the comedy just doesn't hit the same way, And for those people, I would just recommend to find new friends, move out if you're living with them. I don't know. I would say it's a 10 out of 10. Really, it's the best.
10 out of 10.
I mean,
There's nothing wrong with it.
There are things that are wrong with it. That's the thing with any kind of comedy.
That's what's keeping you from the 11 out of 10.
Makes sense.
I just don't know how I could possibly make it better. Like, I mean, I guess you would say I would agree with Joel, like 9.5 out of 10, because it won't hit exactly right for everyone. And some scenes are like, for example, the scene where I love the scene where the guy's in the castle and he storms the castle and all that, but it kind of draws out a little bit like long and some jokes like where the guards are standing in front of the door don't hit the same as they used to.
Yeah. I mean, they were paying for Technicolor, so they got to use as much of that budget as they can. With
But yeah, I mean, I think that's my only. I don't even have a critique really. I think it's just fantastic. So maybe I'll say 9.5.
Okay. What about you? Would you
I would put it at a good 8 or 9. When I first saw the trailer, I thought this is some weird crap, and it was gonna be around a 2. But then knowing more about the movie and the fact that it was made on a $200,000 or £200,000 budget, and to execute it so well, and it's very clever writing and very good content done in a really good way. And yeah, so I would put it at least an 8 or a 9 for that execution.
So 8.5, we'll say?
Yeah, 8.5.
Okay. 9.5, 8.5, 8.5. I'm about to give my rating, but one last thing I just remembered that I'd forgotten to mention before is I found it really cool that some of the main cast, especially the guy who plays King Arthur, he was one of the main writers on it as well. So, clearly they're all crazy in the head and in their acting. But the reason I wanted to go last in giving my rating is because they're probably about to beat me to death, and I don't want you guys to I don't want you to see this, because while I enjoyed the movie, I don't know if I agree with the 8s and the 9.5s, because I liked it. Trust me, I did. But it's not for everybody. And not only is it not for everybody, it's not, like if I was watching this, late at night by myself at my house without these guys, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it nearly as much as I did, or even close to as much as I did today. So, I'm going to give it...
Should I do the react face?
Oh, God. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I'm sorry. 6.5. 6.5 or 7. You know what?
You're riding in the backseat tomorrow.
Well, I was always been riding the backseat, so I'll take it.
Okay. You get the booster seat.
Booster seat. So, you know what? I'm going to settle on a 7 because I don't want to get thrown out of this this beautiful hotel. But yeah, so 7, 8.5, 9.5, 9.5.
Well, okay, so what about it?
Oh, I mean, like I said, it's just not for everybody. And the fact that I watched it with you guys probably enhanced the experience so much more. So much more. All because of him. Not these two, just him. But yeah, you guys, I'm sure you guys can do the math and figure out what the average of those 4 numbers are. But, you know, that's our take. And if you disagree, and a lot of you might disagree with me, please leave it in the comments. And I'll see you guys on the other side. Thank you for watching. Peace out.